What is going on, everybody? My name is Dean. Welcome back to my YouTube channel today. It is a Friday, which means we're just having a look here at the AFL because we just wanted to see AFL 23. We've already done our predictions for the season. We already know Collingwood's 0-3 and they're in a whole world of trouble. But we want to know, what does AFL 23, the video game, think is going to happen this year? AI has obviously done a terrible job so far. I think it predicted Oscar Allen to win the Coleman and he's out for like 10 weeks. It did predict the Giants to win the flag, and they're doing a pretty good start to the season. But we want to see, what does the video game have to say? So we're going to go through, simulate the season. We'll check in at little intervals and find out what is going on. So first things first, what we're actually going to do is simulate to exactly the point in the year where we are now, which is a couple of games into round 2, and this is how your ladder is in fact looking. The Tigers are actually 2-0. Tom Lynch is your goal kicking leader of the pack. The Giants are 2-0. Melbourne, Collingwood 2-1 on that ladder there. And this, I guess is an interesting contrast. If you look at what the ladder's looking like today, similar but not really at all. Very much almost the opposite, apart from GWS being at the top of the table there. And so if we look at this opening round, what were the predictions like? I reckon it's 1 out of 4 here, with GWS beating Collingwood, the only one it got right. Round 1 predictions, again, GWS is correct. That's the only one. And the Gold Coast, that's 2. Melbourne beating the Dogs, that's 3. Port beating West Coast, that's pretty obvious. And then Fremantle beating Brisbane. So I think it ended up with 5 correct tips in round 1, and so far to begin round 2, it's wrong. So let's keep rolling through. So what we've done is we've simulated to the end of round 6, because that is where the first time in the year where the ladder will not be a lying factor, in the sense that everyone will have played the same amount of games. So at this point, it'll have Port Adelaide and Hawthorn at the top of the ladder. Good luck to the Hawks if they manage to do that. The Pies have found their way up into the top 4 with the Blues and the Swans. The Giants have had a little bit of a stumble, but Brisbane, St Kilda also in the top 8 at that point. The D's have dropped out, as well as Geelong, and maybe that's probably about right. The top 8 up, other than the Hawks maybe, is about what, and maybe Collingwood also, as I guess how it might end up looking later in the year. So we've gone through to the second round of buys now, and we've seen the Pies put themselves back on top of the leaderboard. You can see a huge string of wins in a row. It's Collingwood, Sydney, Brisbane, and Carlton in your top 4 at this point, followed by the Hawks, who are still holding on to a position in the top 8, having lost 3 games in a row there. And then there's a logjam between 6th and about 15th, where there's just one game or one win separating 6th and 15th. But the D's and the Dogs at the bottom of the ladder, that's maybe a little bit inaccurate as to what we might see this year, especially Melbourne, I think, will be certainly well and truly up there. But there are a number of teams going along well, and at the moment it's just percentage separating a lot of them. And as we head to that halfway point of the year, let's have a look at who is leading in the goal kickers, the Coleman medal. In fact, it is Brodie Mychek of the Magpies, Tom Lynch of the Tigers, Hayden McLean's having a good year, Tyler Brockman for the West Coast Eagles, incredibly, and Ben King and Charlie Curnow, Gold Coast and the Blues, sort of rounding out that sort of top 5 or 6 players. All right, jumping back in after round 20, the Pies keep their spot on top of the ladder, almost have the minor premiership secured, and we can see the logjam has started to filter a little bit, but it is still between 5th and, 13th. There's just 1 win separating them. There's also just 2 wins separating them. There's 1 win separating 7th and 13th, and 2 wins between 7th and 15th. So there's still so many teams that can make the top 8. So with 1 round to go in the season, we're going to go game by game here. 12 sides that can make the top 8. So let's have a look. Melbourne and Collingwood. It is the Pies locking down top spot on the ladder as we expected. And this is a big one here. The Dogs and the Giants. The Giants winning, I think that almost locks them into the top 8, which it will do. Unless St Kilda, Richmond, Hawthorn all win. So Hawthorn need a win to keep a spot in the 8. They have lost to North Melbourne, who are actually going to get themselves off the bottom of the ladder, it looks like. They will then jump into 17th position. Hawthorn now teetering on the edge of the top 8. Sydney and Adelaide, this is almost a top 4 spot on the line. Sydney win it, which means they go ahead of the Blues. Port Adelaide and Fremantle, I don't think that has any implication, but this is the matchup here. St Kilda and Carlton are both playing for something, because if we look at the ladder, the Blues are playing for second place. If they win, they can get themselves a home final, whereas the Saints, if they win, they get into the top 8. They'll knock the Hawks out, and they will give themselves a finals berth. Who is going to win this one? It is the Saints. So the Hawks, despite being in the top 8 all season long, have now dropped out of the top 8. They've been pushed into 9th place in disappointing fashion. Your top 8 is officially set now, with the last couple of positions as to where they end up still to be determined. So the Tigers win. They'll get a home final. The Cats will lose to the Eagles, who I think get themselves even further off the bottom of the ladder. And the Bombers have beaten the Lions. Let's see how that has our ladder sitting at the moment. And this is our final result after the home and away season. It is your top 4 of Collingwood, Sydney, Carlton, and Adelaide up there. And then 5th through 8th, Richmond, GWS, Brisbane, and St Kilda. So the Giants will play the Lions in an elimination final. Richmond will play St Kilda in an elimination final. The Tigers and the Giants winning their last 4 games to get into this position. Meanwhile, the Hawks were unlucky. Look at that end to the year. A draw and 4 consecutive losses saw them drop out of the top 8. But before I go any further, I should have actually checked who'd won the Coleman and things like that. It was Charlie Curnow winning the Coleman medal. He's got 62 goals to his name across the 23 games season. My check was a close second. Hayden McLean, Tom Lynch, and Cam Zuha rounded out your top 5 there for the Coleman. So now we head to the qualifying final. It is Collingwood and Adelaide, and the winner is the Crows with a huge second half. 10 goals to 3. Collingwood, despite being on top of the ladder the entirety of the season pretty much, lose the first week of the finals in an absolute smashing at the MCG. It was Pedler getting plenty of the footy for the Crows. He, Murphy, Rochelle, and Rankin, a couple of goals apiece. McCreary, DeGoey, Dacos, and Cameron, just the singles. The second qualifying final, the Swans and the Blues. Who's going to win out there? It is going to the Blues, who, in a similar fashion to the Magpies, just kicked away, to the Crows, kicked away late in that last term. 7 goals in that final quarter saw the Blues defeat the Swans. Obviously, they'll move on to a home preliminary final now. Harry Mackay kicked 5 with Cheran Akers, your leading ball winners for the Blues. And with the qualifying finals out of the way, it is all now elimination from here. Richmond and St Kilda, 5th versus 8th. Who will progress through? It's going to be St Kilda, who eliminate the Tigers. They, again, geez, these games are simulating almost exactly the same each time, aren't they? Big last quarter for the Saints. They kick away, and they win it by 36 points in the end over the Tigers. Who are your best on grounds there? Brad Crouch, 39. Jack Steele, 38. Absolutely leading the way for the Saints. Tim Embry had 4. Cooper Sharman, a couple. Big win for the Saints. Moving on. Elimination final number 2. We've seen this plenty of times. GWS and Brisbane. And it's the Lions with a 1-point win. All 4 away teams winning the first week of the finals. Brisbane with a 5-goal, well, it's a 5-goal apiece final term, but a 1 point late. I'd love to know who actually kicked that final game-winning point for the Lions, 13-14 to 13-13. McCluggage and Ward led the way with the ball for both sides. Cal Brown, Jake McCarty, 3 goals for the Giants. McCarthy and Rayner, much more even spread of goal kickers for the Brisbane Lions. But gee, what a game it was. Brisbane by a point at NG Stadium. So this is how it all looks heading into the second and third couple of weeks of the finals. Collingwood and St Kilda will battle in the semi-final 1. Sydney and Brisbane in semi-final 2. The winners will play the Blues and the Crows in the prelims. And it's the Magpies getting themselves back in the season. Defeating the Saints, had the game wrapped up by 3/4 time, and a low-scoring final term saw them progress on with your top ball winners side bottom. And Mason Cox had 30 disposals. Unbelievable scenes. Semi-final 2, the Swans. So all top four teams progressing through to the prelim finals, with the Swans taking down the Brisbane Lions. Despite a 6-goal final term from the Lions, they never got really the margin under 10 points, and Sydney got the job done there. Amadi had 5, Goulden 3, and Cal Mills 30 possessions for the Swans. So 4 teams remain. It was your top 4 at the beginning of the year. It will still be your top 4 at the end of the year. Adelaide play Sydney and Carlton Collingwood, the biggest prelim final we might have ever seen. And it is the Crows at home by a point, getting it done at the Adelaide Oval. A 4-goal each in the final term, 13-14-92 to 13-13-91. Almost a reverse to the Brisbane-Sydney game. I think a Brisbane GWS game was also similar scores. Unbelievable scenes with Matty Crouch, plenty of the footy, and Fogarty, Rochelle, Crouch and Jones. Just even goal kickers across there for the Crows. So we know Adelaide will be in the grand final. Who will they play off against? And it's going to be the Pies, who, despite losing the first week, have absolutely pummeled the Blues in response with a big third term to set up the game, or really a big first half. At halftime, they led it by 39 points, and there was no coming back from the Blues. From there, it was a 52-point margin at three-quarter time. And despite picking it back a little bit, it was Q in the rack from Collingwood. Nick Dacos, your leading ball winner. It's an Adelaide-Collingwood grand final, which is exactly sort of what it was in the first week of the finals, if you can see, where the Crows beat the Pies by 52 points. Will it be the same result on grand final day? Let's find out. Biggest game of the season, Adelaide-Collingwood. It's the Pies winning it. And they've done it by 39 points. Your premiers back-to-back. Who would have thought that that would be the case? Collingwood had the game wrapped up basically at three-quarter time and kicked away in the final term when it was all or nothing. Not sure who your best on ground was, but Bobby Hill would have been close. He had 3 goals to his name. Lipinski, 29. Mychek had a couple. Cameron had a couple. But they got it done. Collingwood back-to-back according to the game. They're 0-3 in reality, though, so it's probably not going to happen. And just very quickly here, let's have a look at who won the major awards. We obviously know Charlie Curnow won the Coleman Medal with 62 goals, but the Brownlow was a 3-way tie. Nick Dacos, Clayton Oliver, and Jai Newcomb for the Hawks, 16 votes apiece. Cripps and McLean narrowly missing out with just one vote each, behind where they were there. As for your All-Australian team, let's make your way from the defenders all the way to the top where the forwards lie. Sam Banks, Sean Lemons, Colby McKercher in season number 1, and Darcy Wilmot, your little backman, while Jake Buckley and Caleb Marchbank were your key defenders in the back 6. Brodie Grundy probably might be the All-Australian ruckman this year for the Swans, as obviously for the competition, and his midfield is supported by Nick Dacos, Jai Newcomb, Clayton Oliver, your 3 Brownlow medalists, Patrick Cripps, and Jacob Hopper having a good season as well for the Tigers. Your forward line also looks pretty stacked. Hayden McLean and Charlie Curnow, they're a couple of the leading goal kickers for the season, as well as Papley, Higgins, Jones, and Menzies, making out the remainders of the All-Australian squad for 2024. Is there anyone on the bench? There's no bench in this, is there? There's no All-Australian bench. Should be an All-Australian bench at some point. So that's it, everyone. That is AFL 23 predicting the AFL season. It has Collingwood going back-to-back. We know that's unlikely. And it's got a pretty interesting look at the top 8. The Crows in the top 4. Is it a possibility? After losing the Suns in round 1, maybe not. But anything is a chance. Thanks for watching today, everyone. I hope you had a good day, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.